of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't see Reverend Bruce Hunt here, so I'd like to give our invocation. Dear Lord, we give thanks for this opportunity to come here and do the business of our city. Please guide us so that we use our best judgment and that we look to the best solution no matter what source it may come. And we give thanks for this time of the year, for our Jewish friends who are celebrating Hanukkah, and for those of us who are Christians who celebrate Christmas next week. In your name, we ask that you stay with us always. Amen. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Gabarecki.
Present.
Councilman Templin. Present. Councilman Cisco.
Present.
Councilman Hayes.
Yes.
Councilman DeGiulio is asked to be excused. Mayor Pro Tem Keenan.
Here.
Treasurer Armstrong.
Present.
And Mayor Mategas.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. I'll ask for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Templin, supported by Councilwoman Gabarecki. Is there any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make mention of the fact that I had hoped to realize a response to my email to the administrator. I had asked for a couple things to be considered, and perhaps she'll cover it in a report. One was that the old format that we were accustomed to using for police and fire overtime be started again. A review of the budgeted amounts for legal fees from all sources be stipulated. And also a discussion of the legality of the disbanding of the police and fire civil service under Order 43, which I don't know that her powers extend to overruling a state law matter, but I was hoping I'd hear some discussion on that.
Well.
And then the land contract that we've been promised for since August, we have never seen on the property next door. Those are the things I'd asked for. Of course, I didn't get a response, so
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. I'd like an approval, a motion to approve the minutes for December 9th.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Hayes. Do I have a second?
Support.
Supported by Councilwoman Gabarecki. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Going to have a presentation by CBRE, Mr. Arthur Itkus. It has to do with a broker's opinion that was requested by the city administrator approximately 2 months ago. And Mr. Itkus, if you'd come forward and give us your presentation, please. Thank you for coming this evening. We appreciate it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Does everybody have the BOV in front of you that I emailed?
I think we do.
Yes.
Great. There's a page that deals with the specifics of the pricing. I believe it was the 5th or 6th page of the BOV.
We only have a 2-page document, I think.
Maybe you just have that, the 2nd page.
They have the letter,
Uh-huh.
the 2-page letter.
Well, let me explain how this is, how we put this together. Basically, this is broker opinion of value. It's our opinion as far as what is the property worth or different parts of the property. You have 11 acres here. We broke it down into 1 to 5 acres that are facing the road and 1 to 5 acres that are in the back of the property, and as well as if somebody wants to buy the property in its entirety. There are several things that go into determining the price. One of them is the comparables. Comparables are properties that have sold in the past and at what are their average prices per acre that we were able to come up with. That has to be coupled with what's going on in the market conditions today. For example, if the market is getting worse, is it staying the same or is it getting better? You take the information from these comps and you adjust them based on the market conditions. Based on what we have come up with, here are your comps. And you will see that 1 to 5 acres that have the exposure to the main road, the comps came back as $250,000 to $300,000 per acre. You have the back 1 to 5 acres that came back as $150,000 to $225,000 per acre. And then if you were to sell the property in its entirety, roughly the 11 acres, the comps show that it could be worth anywhere between $50,000 to $75,000 per acre. Now, these are comps, and comps always have a lag time. By the time that they close, by the time we get this information, the pricing could have been set anywhere between 6 months to 12 months to maybe even as long as 18 months prior to that. So there's always a lag time. This is the reason why we need to take into consideration all the other aspects of the market. The market in the past 12 months has become stronger and has showed an upswing, and we are seeing there's more activity in the market. There are more companies out there looking for land, and the land is finally starting to be sold. It's not a huge upswing, but it is an upswing nonetheless. And given what we have seen in the marketplace, we've come up with an actual recommendation of what the city should bring this property to the market. Our recommendation is the front 1 to 5 acres should be priced at $450,000 to $500,000 an acre. The back 1 to 5 acres roughly at $250,000 to $300,000 an acre. And if somebody wants to come in and buy the entire property, it's anywhere between $100,000 to $150,000 per acre. This is how we came up with these numbers based on the comps that we found in the market and based on the market conditions that we're seeing today. Any questions on these findings?
I have a question.
Councilman Cisco.
So help me understand this. The front 5 acres, you're recommending an asking price of $450,000 to $500,000 an acre.
Correct.
So if we go with $500,000 an acre at 5 acres, that's $2.5 million.
Well, 1 to 5 acres on the asking price, correct. Now, keep in mind, there's still built-in negotiating room as well.
Right. Well, but I'm just going off of your numbers here. So I guess the problem that I have is that selling the entire 11 acres at your numbers is a lot less than just the front 5 acres by itself.
Well, if somebody wants to buy the entire 11 acres, they're also buying the back, which is lower than this $450,000 to $500,000.
Why would we ever sell the entire acreage for less money than for the front 5 acres that we could get double the money?
This is the recommending pricing. This is what you should bring to the market, and the market will stipulate to you what they are willing to pay. So we're making sure that the city finds the strongest benefit by selling this property at these prices. Now, once we bring it to the market, it's similar to what we did next door with 104 acres. We had recommended pricing, and we had 4 offers on the property, either for part of it or for entire property. And we were able to come up with a way to get the final buyer who closed on the property to pay the highest amount possible. And even though if you took a look at those numbers, they were similar to this as far as the differences.
So as the property gets developed next door, is it a foregone conclusion that this property becomes more valuable as this property next door gets developed, depending on what gets developed?
It depends on what gets developed, exactly. It does depend on that. One thing that the property does have is that you do have the back of the property. One of the reasons why I think it's worth a little bit more than what the comps show is that you have frontage to I-94 Expressway. And that's a strong attribute to the property, as well as you're located at an intersection of 2 a freeway and an expressway. That is also, as well as being on the morning side of the road for retailers.
I mean, if we take your numbers, and I know this is all speculation, I get that. But if we sold the front 5 acres and the back 5 acres, to separate people, which might not happen. I mean, we're looking at it a substantial amount of money
At the asking price.
versus the entire library. I don't see how it's an advantage for us to sell all 11 acres at a reduced price. I
The only way
just
you would
don't
do-
see it.
And the only way you would do that is if you don't have the two people looking for the back and the front. That's why you have to, you have to take into consideration all different aspects that may happen, all different scenarios. So scenario might be that a developer comes along and wants the entire 11 acres.
See, I'm not a real estate guy, but I'm looking at the numbers, and to sell all 11 acres to one person for a reduced price really makes no sense to me at all,
Well,
considering the financial situation that we're in.
and the only reason why you would do that is because you don't have somebody who's willing to pay these kind of numbers for the front and the back. But we're making sure that this is what we're seeing in the marketplace, the fact that there is an upswing, and we want to make sure that the city has the strongest benefit.
Do you feel that this property, this 11 acres, can be moved within a time period?
Within a time period, yeah. You have the development going on next door,
1 to 10 years?
so, well, I hope it's not gonna be 1 to 10 years. Well, it is gonna be 1 to,
Well, I was hoping that you would name the time period. So,
what, these kind of properties, prior to figure 6 months prior to that, land has been sitting around for roughly 2.5 years to 3 years. And we've talked about that in the past. Currently, it has increased in activity. I would say you're looking at, it could be anywhere between 6 months to 18 months. That's what I think is a safe, probably safe bet.
would it be a bad thing for me to ask you if anybody's approached you about this property?
We've had various conversations, just because we were marketing the property next door. We've had inquiries on this property, correct? And we've seen decent activity, but nothing's been nothing's been serious, nothing to even really discuss at this point.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Hayes?
Yeah, Arthur, Mr. Itkiss, referring specifically to the paragraph under market conditions where you refer to an offer that the city received, which of course we're unaware of, you seem to suggest, if I read it correctly, that those 3 acres back there, which we would normally consider the lesser desirable of the 11, seem to command an offer price somewhere in the frontage kind of range. Now, I don't know if that was the 275 an acre, the 450,000 acre, or what, but I read it to say that we had an offer for these 3 acres that would command, that was close to what we were wanting to get for the front 5 acres, the high, or the, you know, the one with access. And I don't want you to spell out what the offer was, because that may be, you know, proprietary of some sort. But is that a fair representation of what was going on, that it was a pretty substantial offer?
It was a substantial offer, but I would call it as just a letter of interest, not even a really serious offer yet, because we really haven't gone further than that.
Well, you don't have authority to really go any further right now, do
Until
you?
you told me I don't have authority.
So you are not currently our agent, according to Mrs. Folks, and I guess you've informed us of that last time. I was unaware of that, given the fact that your sign is still up there proudly on the thoroughfare.
Next
But-
door, we're still there, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, and the other thing I guess I'm wondering is, you're saying that you're seeing a pickup in the market activity. There's a little more movement of raw land, that prices seem to be going up. And I don't know, because we don't get much information, so I don't know if we're in some kind of rush to get this done. I don't know a lot of things about why we have one group apparently that has some interest. Sounds like they have kind of a lowball offer, given this new information. But, and then Mr. Cisco asked about the, you know, you said 6 to 18 months you could see this going, but I don't know that we're that desperate that we have to move it that immediately. And if the market's trending upward, I would think it would be in our interest to kind of hold out as long as we can. And one final point, if I understand it correctly, this current project, the 104 acres, I guess, includes a couple hotels, right? Isn't that my understanding?
I know of one
one. I think I read somewhere today, it was like 2 hotels. This other offer, he wants to build a hotel. I mean, how many hotels can this little piece of paradise manage? Along with the Hardee's restaurant, which I don't know is the most desirable food vendor that we could have, but let's say 3 hotels, a Hardee's, you know.
I don't know about the 2 hotels next door. I know that there was an interest from one. I don't know how far it's gotten. But
Well, in your experience with this density of property, does 2 or 3 hotels seem like a reasonable,
I mean, I've seen, if you go to Wixom, for example, you've seen right on 96.
by Cedar Point or something
Yeah,
maybe?
well, not Cedar Point, but if you go to Wixom, there's 96, there's about 3 hotels, I believe, right off of that, one of the exits. But the hotels themselves, they do a pretty good job of doing their, I guess, demographic work and figuring out if that area can support. And they are all aware of each other, I would think,
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming, too.
certainly.
Mayor Pro Tem Keenan?
Mr. Iskis, do you mind if I ask you, I'm not a real estate guy. Do you mind if I ask you just some basic real estate questions?
By all means.
You know, we did an RFP on this property, and my understanding is we didn't really get a lot of response. The RFP was specifically to build us a new city hall on property that we have basically in the center of the location. One of the respondents then kind of the whole thing changed. It went from just being the builder of the facility to possibly purchasing this front property. That's when, as Councilman Hayes talked about, the Hardee's and a hotel, and then there was some discussion even about the back, and it just evolved into totally something different than the original RFP. Again, being a layman and not really understanding how these things work, in my mind, and I'm asking, I guess, as a question because I don't know, but in my mind, it just would seem like if what we're looking at doing with this 11 acres has changed, then a new RFP would be in order, or a new, agreement or something like that. To me, it's not. We don't have a level playing field, I guess, is a word that I would use. If you go out and you say, hey, we're seeking bids to build us a new city hall, and only one guy bids because he's really busy, maybe he doesn't want to do that. But then you start getting into the ability to develop 11 acres, possibly own part of it, hotels. That's a much bigger. You may now have 6 or 8 companies that say, hey, now we're definitely interested. Is that a fair statement? Is that how real estate works, or am I kind of dense here?
No, not at all. I would say that's a fair statement. And in fact, this is what we've done next door, is that we brought the property to the market when we created a site plan for the property, and the site plan actually worked for the buyer, and he looked at it, he liked it. So the idea here is the RFP is, I haven't seen your RFP, but when we go out to the market, when we market a property, we explain the various possibilities. We actually have a conversation with these potential buyers and show them where the value added comes in. And this is where, and we also know that there are some companies out there who don't deal with smaller developments such as this, but there are companies out there who actually like them. So it's a very fair statement, the fact that when you market the property, you expose it to all different venues and to all different buyers. And what we do as a company, we literally cold call these buyers, discuss the specifics and where we think they can really have a value added, and work with the city to do a build-to-suit as well.
As you know, because I called you, and you know that, I didn't make no secret, when I read this, I had some concern, as Councilman Hayes stated, with the reference to the offer. And I know you, and I'll publicly say, you were very cautious not to tell me anything that wasn't appropriate. You told me that you were not our agent and that you didn't have authority to tell me anything, and we didn't really talk numbers or anything like that. But obviously there was an offer back there that we were never privy to. And my understanding, from what I think reading between the lines, is it probably never came to a written, well, it may even have been written, but I don't think it was a letter of intent. It maybe was just a letter of interest or something to that effect that was just kind of said, let's hold it off to the side because we're still working on this deal over here, and we don't want to have anything, kind of hinder that. So I don't think that there was any malice or anything like that, and maybe us not getting the offer because this was all while this was still active before that was closed on, as I understand it. But it certainly was a red flag to me, and that's certainly why I called you. But you came into the presentation tonight and you referenced us going to page 6, and we only have 2 pages, which is, again, is
It's the VOV that I sent in.
yeah, we only have,
It's similar to what you're seeing over here.
well, I guess, here's my problem. You know, because you've been involved in the city of Allen Park, we've gone through some hard times based on a real estate deal that didn't pan out as everybody would have liked it to. We can point fingers and point blame, but, we need to move forward, and that's what I'm about. But, there's a lot of things set up here. We had a previous councilman that used to talk about things not passing the smell test, and I never liked hearing that. But the fact that we're asked to make decisions and give our input into property sales and into things where we certainly are way out of our comfort zone. Admittedly, I'm not keen to all the way things work around here with real estate and all that stuff. I believe that's why you hire professionals. And I think that's why smart people surround themselves with smarter people, because they can get things done that they can't. You don't want me to market this property or try to sell this property. But I'm going to tell you, when I get a document like this that talks about an offer that I've never seen, when the question came up about it, nobody seemed to know about it at all, like they'd never heard about it, which I don't believe. And now we're talking about multiple pages of stuff. This doesn't pass the smell test so bad that if there was a cop out here, I'd try to get some of that stuff that they wear when they walk into a murder scene just to keep the smell away. This stinks to high heaven. And there's no way in the world that I want any more part of this being handled internally by anybody on this council or in this administration. We need a professional to come in and to market this property and to do what's best for the city of Allen Park and its citizens as a whole, in my opinion. There's just too much stuff out there that we don't know. As was alluded, I mean, I hear rumors, and rumors are rumors, but that the property in the back, the 3 acres, the offer was more than what we were offered in the front. I mean, this is just, I mean, I have a very, very scary feeling of having some egg on our face here real quick. And I just want to say that I appreciate you coming in as a professional, giving us your opinion and your numbers. I understand what you're saying about the front and the back. Obviously, I think as Harry was saying, if we could sell the front for, $2 million and the back for $2 million and the middle for, blah, 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 it would be, if you're looking at 1.6 million for the whole 11 acres, and you can get 2 million for the front by itself and keep the back, 7 acres, it's a no-brainer. And I mean, obviously you guys know that, but I appreciate you coming in and enlightening us, because the bottom line is I, for one, don't feel like I have any opinion in any kind of sale of any land in this city right now without having proper documentation and knowing what the heck we're talking about. Because right now I can tell you I'm feeling really clueless up here. Thanks.
Here, here.
Mr. Templin?
I do have one question. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
You're talking half the $450,000 per acre, but we have a building sitting there. How much is that going to affect that price?
We don't know how much it's going to take to bring the building down. So we have to get those numbers. So once we get those numbers, we can come up with stronger, but that becomes a part of the negotiation with a buyer.
Right.
So then if a buyer has his own, for example, I have dealt with buyers who have their own construction companies. To them, it costs a lot less than somebody who doesn't. So with each buyer, you're going to have a different way of negotiating, and they're going to come in with different ways that they can approach the property.
Fair to say, though, that the 450 probably isn't what we're going to get for that. You say is
It's the asking price.
Is
I mean,
the asking price. Obviously, I can ask $250,000 for my house, and I know what I'm going to get for it.
I mean, as the broker, if I was getting the asking price on every single property, I'd be sitting very pretty right now.
Right. Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Itkus, as Mr. Templin pointed out, the demolition of the building, but we've got 2 buildings at the back too. And we know this one has asbestos and whatnot in it. I suspect the other buildings, because of age, are going to have similar issues.
That's when we're going to have to go with a buyer. We're going to go through phase 1 environmental, phase 2, whatever is necessary.
But in your experience, would you think that they're going to reduce their price based upon whatever their cost is to handle that removal?
They will negotiate that, yes, most likely.
The other thing, we were talking about 3 hotels or whatever, and Time Equities did go to planning and zoning with a proposal. It did, I think, initially show that it might be 2 hotels, but as I understand now, there's only one that's definitely committed to go forward, so. But I think that was the planning and zoning proposal of that large drawing that they presented to them, and that was on the 23-acre site. Are we correct?
You know, I'm not involved in that. It's different part.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think they're working on it on their own.
But what I was going to say, where we've got intersections of a major road with the I-94, it's pretty common to group a lot of hotels,
They love
fast food
exposure.
restaurants. I mean, for Thanksgiving, I drove the Ohio Turnpike and the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and if you weren't stopping at one of the rest stops, every corner seemed that you could get off had exactly that, multiple places to stay or to eat. That's a pretty common type of
That makes sense in the
development
hotels.
process.
Yeah.
The other question that I have is, if CBRE was asked to take a listing on this, would they exclude a single buyer? You know that Boise has been directed by the emergency manager under an order that she issued to the city for the city administrator to negotiate a transaction with them. If there was a listing agreement, would CBRE consider a single exclusion where if they came to a document that the city administrator would be willing to present to the council, if we had something like a 60-day for you to bring whatever buyers you had with some comparable deal to the market, is that
We can discuss that.
is that an
we've done-
unfair way to do it? I mean, a lot of times it's a 30-day deal, but but usually that's more in a residential setting than I think.
We can soon discuss that. We've done that in the past, and we can discuss how we can approach this.
Okay, so it's not an unreasonable request to exclude a single buyer where we know, I mean, if the best deal after some months is that person, we would look pretty foolish to say, we're paying you 6% for somebody that we've got in hand, but is there a request, if that person is coming forward with what may be their final offer, what is your experiences? What would CBRE want as a time factor to bring whatever people they have contacted to say, look, we lose the agreement within so many days because they've got an offer that they're willing to accept unless they get a market offer that's better, or better terms, or whatever it is,
And we've done that in the past, and that's something I'd like to discuss with the city council as we're discussing the rest of the listing agreement. So we can certainly discuss. I'll be open to your suggestions, and I can come up with my own.
Mayor, if I could, I just have one
Yeah.
more quick question.
Mayor
I meant
Pro
to ask you earlier, are you guys marketing the property next door for Time Equities?
My company is. We have, because the property is the industrial building, we have the industrial brokers that we brought in to help lease the property, and then we have 2 other brokers who are helping with the frontage.
So would that be a conflict with us as far as, and again, not real estate, but somebody comes in, how do you know when you get a buyer comes in and says, hey, I'm looking for 5 acres, and I'd like it to be on Southfield Road, how do I know you're gonna bring them here and not there?
Because I'm representing you, I'm not representing them. It's, in a sense, what those brokers are doing has nothing to do with me. I don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what I'm doing. I'm marketing my own property. And that, if we're part of the same company, but we're all independent contractors, and we have our own listings.
Okay.
Well, how do you go with the listing services, you know, we have a nationwide commercial industrial, I can't think of the name of the service that
We
most
have,
of you use now, but pretty much, I mean, you put it up, everybody else in the office is knowing that we've got the listing there, and it's gonna have
they'll
to,
know that we have the listing, but if you're talking about tenant rep, people who are actually representing buyers and tenants, we do a lot of listings. We have some, in fact, even the brokers next door, they do mostly listings, not tenant representation.
right.
So we're both doing the same thing in a sense, so that we're not on opposite ends.
I just didn't know, I mean, it doesn't seem to me that it's likely that anybody keeps the thing secret.
It's not
as to the
secret, but it,
listings, because you're going on national listing services, or we certainly hope you do. And generally in the brokerage agreement, there is a certain time frame where you can work your own contacts, but you've got to go national and pay that cost.
well, the national is for what we are marketing. So
Right.
it goes everywhere, but we get the exact same information from other companies as well. So in a sense, if I take on a listing here, my company represents property there, we may as well be from two different companies, we're using the exact same services.
Right.
It's the commercial websites.
Any other questions by council? Well, I'd like to thank you for coming during this holiday season and giving us your time and expertise. It was very kind of you, and we appreciate the help that you got us on getting that transaction completed again.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you very much. Thank your cohort that worked with you on that one.
I will do that. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item we have is there are no public hearings. We're going to go right to the organizational business of the city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The couple of items that I will run through. The first is that the Deputy Fire Chief David Cervetter has now tendered his resignation. His last day with the city will be December 31st of this year. Secondly, if you've looked on the website and looked through any of the orders of the EM, you saw that pursuant to Order 55, the emergency manager had asked that there be disclosure policies and procedures drafted, and she had that done by an expert in the field, and then adopted those. And together with that order and the city's SEC obligations under the order, Disclosure Counsel John Kamens today conducted the required training on the adopted disclosure policies and procedures for several identified individuals. Third, Gordon Thorsby of Exbatec is in the final stages of his IT needs assessment. And then same thing with Garrett Myers, who is with the Gateway Group. He is concluding his telecom needs analysis. And so we'll look forward to getting some feedback from them. The information that we'll receive from them will help us to develop appropriate RFPs to go out into the marketplace to actually get the equipment, have the work done. This is in anticipation of our move, in essence, across the parking lot. With French and Associates, Paul Corneliuson has worked with the city on many occasions and has been working with the city regarding developing an appropriate overlay, if you will, architectural overlay of the space that's in what has been referenced as the Stautzenberger space. And that is the space that we will eventually move into as temporary quarters. And he has looked at that space and developed some drawings, renderings, And so there are still some changes that need to be made before we can take that and develop an appropriate RFP to actually have the construction work done. He is very mindful that as minimal changes as possible is the order of the day, given the slim pickings of monies that can be dedicated to that. Time Equities, as you heard previously, is in the process of closing with a company called Allen Park Inn and Suites Incorporated in connection with their purchase of the approximately 5.5 acres of land, which recently received site plan approval, and that site plan anticipated 2 hotels. The broker's opinion of value, the 2-page that you had was the condensed version of the report that Mr. Itkus had in his hand. It just has more details. I'm more than happy to get that to you. That might help you fill in the process that he used, and you'll see more information about the comparables and that sort of thing. The insurance adjuster has completed the investigation of claims regarding the Roush space and the Stotzenberger space, and that has to do with the flooding that took place, as you know, August 11th. That information has been shared with Time Equities. Time Equities has taken a look at the space. They have, over the last month and a half, provided us with information that they wanted the insurance company to consider, and just as important, they wanted FEMA to know about. Each and every detail that they provided to us, we have then given that to the insurance company and have provided that to FEMA. One of the things that they looked into is they believed that there was some kind of water damage regarding a flooring slab. And so they had a company take a look at that, develop a report. So that has been given to the insurance company, and we'll wait and see once if that is something that the insurance company believes should be incorporated into their final analysis as well, or whether maybe there's another test that needs to be done. Pursuant to the request of the RTAB when they met December 3rd, we provided recent samples of claims and accounts and payroll runs to the state. What they have indicated is that in their January 7th meeting, they're going to take a look at adopting a resolution that would approve certain, or I should say, would provide certain pre-approvals to certain vendors as well as payroll. We have been conducting budget meetings and have been developing pursuant Order 57, the 5-year rolling budget as well as the 6-year capital improvement plan. We have a draft at this point. There is 1 or 2 individuals that have in the past been recommended to us by the state for them to take a look at it. It may be looked at by the RTAB. It is not in a final phase yet. So we are going to submit that pursuant to Order 57, get the feedback, make whatever adjustments we need to make, and at an appropriate time, then that's going to be brought before the council. There'll be a presentation, an opportunity to ask some questions and take a look at what that might look like. And last, we are working with MuniWeb in the final stages, I should say, of launching the new website. One of the largest holdups to this has been a technical issue. And the issue, first of all, in order to maintain our current domain name, which is cityofallenpark.org, and activate the new website, we need to be able to unlock our domain for transfer. And we need to transfer the EPP code and need to get what they call a screenshot of our DNS. And that issue has been the real challenge in that the access codes to the server have been unknown. So we continue to problem solve that. We are probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through that issue right now. And the last piece we are waiting for our IT service company, which is Southern Michigan Information Alliance, to provide us with the last piece. So they are doing a little bit of research. We expect to hear from them within not too long a period of time. So that's all I have.
Could I have a motion to accept and file the update reports, and then we'll take questions for Ms.
Motion.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem,
Support.
support by Councilwoman Gavareki. Are there any questions of the city administrator?
I have a few, if you may.
Okay.
Councilman
Let
Hayes?
you rest your voice for a minute.
I was gonna talk while I still had one, but that's all right.
A few questions. I noticed we had Disclosure Counsel, John Kamens, and that prompts me to re-ask what I'd asked you in writing about the legal expenses for their city. I mean, I was looking at the budget. As I read it, we have about $120,000 allocated for the city attorney and prosecutor, $10,000 a month, looks like. That's a fairly fixed cost. Seems like we have $30,000 for litigation, and then we have $100,000 for the labor attorney, which seems an awful lot, but I guess that's what they decided. I don't know what we're negotiating this year in 14-15, frankly, but perhaps there's something there. Are there any other categories for legal fees in the budget besides these I've mentioned, Ms. Folks?
There probably are litigation.
I mentioned litigation.
Did you mention that?
$30,000.
And then it could be that there are other legal fees that have to do with the SEC order.
I don't doubt
we
that.
are-
Let me
yeah,
see
and
if you
so
understand my
I just wanted to make
question.
sure that you understood that
No.
there are certain things that we are obligated to do.
I understand that.
Yeah.
What I'm asking specifically is, and if you listen carefully, these are the amounts listed in the budget. I'm asking, are those budgeted amounts sufficient to cover such things as Mr. Kamens, the Miller Group, and any number of other extraordinary legal things that fall outside the purview of our city attorney? Because if so, I don't see another category listed for additional legal fees. I don't doubt that we're obligated. Obviously, we're obligated. If we spend the money, we got to pay for it. I'm asking you if there's anywhere I'm missing in the budget, or these are budgeted.
You're right that legal fees are reflected in a number of different line items. And what I will do is, let me put something together so that you can see particularly where some of these legal fees, which have been incurred because of the mandate for some of these pieces, are being handled. I can do that.
Okay, because as I view it at this point, it seems like we are probably far in excess of our budgeted legal fees already. Secondly, with respect to the FEMA matter, I had asked you in writing for some specification as to where this alleged water damage was, because that building has been damaged ever since we've owned it by water, and I don't want to make sure, I want to make sure we're not in a situation where we're claiming an old damage as new and setting ourselves up for a charge of maybe misrepresenting, because I understand that building has had the walls and the drywall have had stains from water up 3 feet high for many, many years. And that's been documented. So I guess that's why I was curious to know if you could provide me, as an elected official, with some of that information so I could understand and compare it to my notes from previous information I have about the building. Are you prepared to do that?
Here's what I would explain for your benefit, and that is that there have been conversations with the insurance company. There is an acknowledgement that, in fact, there is some previous damage. And so with what I discussed in my report having to do with Time Equities asking about whether or not there was this flooring slab that was damaged as a result of the incident that occurred in August, while he has submitted a report to the insurance company now takes a look at that, whatever core samplings they have done, and they may determine that it's important to have an independent engineer actually go out and do other kinds of testing so that, in fact, we don't have the problem that you are specifying. So we are all over that, and so is the insurance company.
All right, and then finally, I alluded to this in my opening remarks on the agenda. I'm given to believe that we may have as many as 4 grievances in our fire department right now that will have to be handled by an arbitrator at some great cost, and probably outside counsel or perhaps our labor attorney, I don't know who. Whereas formerly, when we had the Act 78 provisions in the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission, all those grievances were handled within that commission and were binding and final, and there were no costs associated with it. And I guess I'm asking legal counsel, I don't know, I've been troubled by this because Public Act 78 was voted on by the citizens of this community as their preference to how to handle these things, and then Mrs. Parker's powers must have allowed her to overrule what was otherwise a state law, because that was embodied in the contract. She did take it out of the fire contract. I think it's still in the police contract. So if it's still in the police contract, that begs the other question, how are we going to handle it if there should come a police grievance when there's no, the contract doesn't allow for this outside binding arbitration? I wonder if you'd opine on that little chestnut.
I'm not sure exactly who you're asking, but let me just
Both of you.
weigh in. The orders are the orders. And clearly, if you look at Public Act 436, that gives you the parameters of that power and authority. If the city attorney wants to weigh in on how or why 436 allows an emergency manager to exercise powers and authority that is not limited by a charter or otherwise, you know, by all means you can do that.
The charter, I understand. State law, I don't quite understand.
It's a very complex question. I'm not gonna give you an opinion off the cuff. I will say, you know, my understanding is it definitely is authorized to do that. And, you know, the assumption that this avoids all grievances and, you know, these commissions don't always have decisions and it's just ended at that point. But I think part of what you're saying assumes that, you know, somehow that it would be ended at that point. So I would say in some situations it does, in some situations it does not. But I definitely, I'm not prepared to, you know, to give you an answer as to how those, how that all interacts now.
Well, I'll just ask counsel if you would have a chance between now and the next meeting. I'd like to get a firm understanding, because I understand she has very broad powers, Ms. Parker, that is. But I would think that a state statute that specifies a concrete mechanism for doing something And then if you read the labor agreements, when they were in there, it said that the decision of the police and civil service, police, fire, civil service, their decisions are finding vis-a-vis any grievance associated with terms, conditions, wages, terminations, et cetera, and they were binding, and you were locked into that. So if you could look into that, I'd be most grateful. Thank you.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem?
Mine is going to be relatively easy, I think, compared to that. And I'm not going to hold you to this, because I believe I'm going to ask you about a statement that I think Ms. Parker made, so you may be able to get back with me, or may, under your time equities, item number 5, I recalled when we met across the street for the news conference of the sale, there were several questions that were asked and answered. And I believe that one of the questions was that that the mayor and council, and I believe the body, the whole administration, yourself included, would be able to have some input on the site plan next door in the agreement, along with the fact that as prop pieces sold, that there would be, lump sums paid back to the city and all the different things. But I don't, maybe other people have. I've never seen any kind of, this is the first mention I've seen of anything to do with like a site plan or anything like that. And I thought that the city was going to have an opportunity to have some input in like a site plan on that property as part of our agreement. Does anybody else remember that discussion, or am I like totally off base here?
I seem to recall it.
Do we know, are we going to get anything? I mean, this is the first time I've heard of anything of them actually coming in any kind of site plan. But is it something that's going to come before us, or are we going to have an opportunity to weigh in on that, or is that not part of the agreement as I understood it?
I don't really think that part of the contract that we actually signed with them said that as they went forward with the development, that the council would be the entity that would replace planning and zoning and the zoning board of appeals, because those two entities have been put in place to handle those kind of real estate development matters if they're within the International Building Code and our ordinances and that. And then as to if they're not within that, then they're going to have to come to the zoning board of appeals to see if a variance is appropriate for whatever they're trying to do. Either it's a use variance or, but I didn't remember that in the preliminaries, Bob, but that's my recollection.
And that's why I asked it as a question. I'm not, maybe it goes back to.
Because it went there and it went through there so fast, I didn't find out until after that it had gone through.
Well, maybe it just goes back to, as Dennis has said, the fact that we've never seen the contract, so I don't really know what was left in it, so.
If I don't have any other questions, I ask for the vote on the motion to accept and file the update reports. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Come to the agenda item, public comments, and I'd like to just read the rules of decorum for the public. Individual may only speak on an issue after the individual has been recognized by the chairperson. Comments from the floor shall be made at the podium at the front of the council table or at such area as designated by the chairperson. Prior to the individual speaking from the floor, the individual shall identify themselves and state their address for the record. We use just your street address, please. And the individual shall also identify if they are representing any group or organization. All comments shall be directed only to the chairperson. Speakers are not to address other members of the council or members of the audience. Each member of the public may speak for up to 4 minutes. All written statements should be given to the city clerk prior to the meeting so that copies may be available to the members of the public body. No individual shall be allowed to make any defamatory attack or invasion of another's individual's personal life. There should be no questions, comments, discussions, or attacks regarding anybody's personal life. The chairperson shall immediately rule out of order any person who begins to bring up such issue. If the chairperson does not, any member of the council may call a point of order and request the offending party out of order. If the chairperson does not rule the offending party out of order, the council member may call for an appeal of the decision, and if the chair's decision is overturned, the offending party shall be deemed being out of order. If the person making the comments is allowed to continue, the person who is being challenged or whom the comments are made against shall be entitled to make an immediate rebuttal statement. For purposes of these rules, as they relate to elected officials or city officials, the term personal life shall refer to anything other than that which is said or done in the person's official capacity as an elected official or in person's official city capacity. Members of the public body may question the speakers, but the members of the public body are not obligated to answer any questions or make any statements on the issue raised or discussed by the speaker. Issues may be referred to the appropriate body, department, or individual for investigation or review. No person or group shall be allowed to disrupt the meetings or proceedings. Any individual who fails to comply with these rules after having first been warned by the chairperson to cease such actions shall be ordered by the chairperson to leave and or be ejected from this meeting. So with that, if I have any citizens that wish to come forward and speak at this time.
Good evening, Brian Debo, Allen Park. If I may ask the city administrator some questions. First question, are we currently paying rent to Time Equities?
No.
When was that rent going to start?
When it starts, I'll let you know.
Similar to you let me know if we're going to be due if the citizens, taxpayers for the rollback. You still don't, do you have an answer for that question? Are we eligible because they changed the rules? Because you were, whenever you find out, you're going to let me know on that one too. Yeah, okay. It seems to me that there's not much information being shared here. It caught you all by surprise what that person did the presentation is talking about the cost of the property over here or what we can get for the property. Even though you don't have any authority over the city administrator, you still can speak up. You should go to the RTAB meeting, unless you condone this lack of communication from the administrator. You should go to the RTAB meeting and complain. You can voice your opinion saying this is ridiculous. You're not getting the information. The citizens aren't getting the information. There's a deliberate attempt not to answer our questions. And you guys can speak up. You don't need to sit here and take this. Please, speak up. Represent us. You were voted. Even though you don't have the authority to make a lot of the decisions, you still can represent us. I urge you, please, unless you condone this, please speak up at the RTAB meeting and complain about this. We don't know about the lease. Whenever they find out about the lease, we signed a land contract, which obviously none of the people here have seen. We haven't seen. We don't know what's in it. I don't quite understand why the flooding occurred after we sold the property, and yet somehow one of the reports was Mr. Boomer is leading the effort over there, and we're now taking a look at our insurance over there. I thought we sold the property. It seems like we're still responsible for what's going on over there. Do we know if we are still have a lot of responsibility or not? Is that being shared with you guys? Why are we even involved with the flooding that went over there if we already sold the meeting?
Let me answer that question, because the flooding occurred 8/11. The closing on the property is 8/22. We're the owners. It's our insurance that has the coverage at that point.
So anything after that point in time is their responsibility? We're not involved with it at all?
At the 8/22.
Okay.
But the problem is,
That's fair. I appreciate the answer. Thank you very much. Is there a time frame for our move out of this facility?
there was a time frame.
So what?
And we're past the time frame, but the IT problems that were explained tonight have become more.
So we're going to move into that other building. We don't know for how long we're going to move in there. We don't know what our rent's going to cost us when we do move into that building. The police department, previous discussions when we moved, the police department was going to be the major expense. So we're going to move into a temporary building, and then eventually if we have a building or move into another building, who knows what those plans are, we're going to then build a permanent police station a couple times apparently, instead of just building one permanent police station now. I guess I have no idea what's going on, and from the discussions up here, I would gather that a lot of you don't know what's going on or what your plans are, what the time frames are, and I suggest, please, go to the RTAB meeting and complain. Please, represent us. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Good evening. Linda Goulette, Allen Park. I have the current CBRE ad for our property in my hands. This was as recent as 5 o'clock tonight. And the land price that the gentleman was talking about varies very significantly. They are advertising the acreage as $600,000 an acre. The gentleman said between $450 and $500 for the most desirable part. And you can go all the way down the other parcels of land. This, to me, seems really, really questionable. And why would they still, if they're not our agent, why would this still be out there for the rest of the world internationally? Because they are the world's largest real estate developer in the world. They also do a lot of work with Boji Group. So it would work in their favor financially to do so.
When you say our property, what do you?
The property you're talking about, the 5 in the front, as this gentleman parceled it up tonight, 1 through 5 in the front, back 5, or the entire?
This property here that we're sitting in?
Yes,
We've
yes.
never marketed this property with CBRE.
We have never. I stand corrected. I do want the council to understand that there are a lot of very questionable practices that have been done by this interested developer. And also there are lots of other people who are interested in developing given the chance. Thank you.
Bob, if you're going to sit way in the back, I'm going to start using the 4 minutes to get here.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, please?
I said if you're going to sit that far in the back, I'm going to start using the 4 minutes as coming up here. So
Can't do your
Bob.
pageant walk anymore.
You can start the clock now. I'm talking.
Good evening.
Has the bonds been refinanced for
Just state
Robert Turner, Morris Avenue? Have the bonds been refinanced for next door?
They have not.
They haven't, okay. I had a councilman tell me, Bob, he said, you're in a bubble. Boy, are we in a bubble. Everyone's in a bubble. I requested some FOIA information, Freedom of Information Act. I know there's a legal process on that. If I don't get the information, I think I'm supposed to be denied in writing. So I think we need to address the whole FOIA deal. But people up here aren't getting information. And I don't understand why I would not get the information. But these people are making decisions for the city. At least I hope they are. Next one is on the FEMA, the self-release project. Was that flooding from rain coming in or from ground coming up? The next door.
I know what you're saying, but I, as a matter of fact, do not know whether it's one or the other or whether it was both, because that property is below road grade there.
When we turned down the Allen Road property, the flooding was the issue of turning that property down. So evidently, we have the same issue over there. Also, over by my house is a pumping station there, and Wade?
Wade Trim.
Yeah, they make some improvements. And I thank the guy for working on that pump station. I explained I've been storing some water for him. He thanked me for that. I'm being facetious here, but okay, I think we have it. Thank you.
Jennifer Kibbe, Allen Park Downtown Development Authority. First, I'd like to say that the Ecorse streetscape is finished, at least for the year. We have a little bit of punch work to do in the spring, and I was in contact with DTE again today, and they swear those last 5 lights will be up sometime. There is still some restoration work to be done on the north side. That's actually DPS's project with the water main, and they got that done, and then the ground froze. So it's not gonna look so great until the spring when they can finish that off, but there'll hopefully be no more water leaks. And then on behalf of the little Allen Parkers, I wanted to invite everyone to the holiday tree lighting tomorrow at the Pocket Park on the corner of Allen and White, beginning at 7 o'clock. As you know, the DDA was forced to cancel its own tree lighting ceremony. So some citizens stepped up, and they put the tree out last night, and they'll be having a really wonderful event with s'mores and hot cocoa and maybe some caroling. So I invite everyone to come. That's it.
I see no one else coming forward, so I will close the public comment section. We'll go to the consent agenda. I'd like to take A as one consent item, 1 and 2 for claims and accounts and a payroll report. If I could have a motion on that one. Motion by the Mayor Pro Tem, supported by
Are you
Councilman.
separating them right now?
I am, because they're just,
You're separating the two from the, because I have to get that clear for the RTAB.
See, consent agenda, normally you
Okay.
just vote once, you approve the consent agenda, unless someone makes a
Might have a
motion.
consent if you're gonna.
Yeah, I'll make
Exactly.
the motion just as a consent agenda for both items.
I
Okay.
know, it'd be all three.
yeah.
Is that, well, let me clarify this. I have several questions about the payroll report. Does that proscribe me from asking questions if we approve it?
Yes. Yes, it would.
Hope that Mr. Keenan would withdraw his motion so that we could discuss this in some depth, rather than treat it as a consent.
Well, let me ask the clerk, if any council person objects to a consent agenda, do we then take it as an
Really,
ordinary
it's not an
item?
action unless it's voted on, really. That's how I look at it. That's how I'm gonna record it in the minutes. Either you're gonna approve it as a consent, or you're gonna remove something and then approve that item and then go back to the consent.
Okay.
All right, so
So-
let me back up. I'll remove my motion. I'll make a new motion to have a consent agenda for item A1 and B1, and remove item A2 for further discussion.
I'll second that.
The council understand the motion of Mayor Pro Tem Keenan?
That was A1 and,
B1.
no, that would basically be, you would like to remove
Payroll.
And remove.
A2
Right.
and keep, I've got it. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board.
The only reason I was going to separate those, so everybody understands, is the application parade permit was made by the DDA, but it's really the little Allen Parker's event. And so it was, the permit that's applied for is not the parties that are really handling the event. I see. So, but Ms. Kibbe came up and stole my thunder and cleared it up, but that was my thinking, because the permit was done by the DDA, but it's really not their event. So with that, I will ask for the vote on the motion. Yes.
Just one note there on B1, the time, isn't that 5 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock? I just noticed that. Huh? Oh,
Yeah.
the road closure for, okay, got it. I'm sorry, thank you. My
Okay.
mistake.
Yeah, it was on the
Got it.
parade permit. Is that- All right.
Can't close it all at the same time, can you?
But I just have a question. Can I ask a question?
I guess you can.
Well,
No.
is it about the removing of the, okay, then we gotta stick to the vote. I have a motion by Keenan, supported by Hayes, to remove A2 from the consent and keep to basically just remove A2 from the consent agenda. So there's a motion and a support.
Now you got me confused.
Well, now we need to call the question.
Yeah.
I thought my motion was to approve the consent agenda minus
A2.
A2.
Right.
Is that what you said?
I'm
Yes.
sorry, and approve. Thank you, sorry. It was too much of your call.
I've been sick this week too, Mike, so I'm kind of half here too, so don't worry.
All in favor of the motion signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
No.
No. Take a roll call, please.
Councilman Gavarecki,
No.
Councilman Hayes,
Yes.
Councilman Keenan,
Yes.
Mayor Mategas,
Yes.
Councilman Cisco,
No.
Councilman Templin.
Yes.
The yeses have it, so we will remove A2 from the consent. That will need approval, a motion and support, and it did approve A1 and B1 on the consent.
So we can go and deal directly with A2 at this point.
Yep.
I have a motion to approve A2,
I'll make that motion.
moved by Councilman Hayes,
Support.
supported by Councilman Templin. Discussion, please.
Yes,
Councilman
Mr.
Hayes.
Chairman, thank you so much. As Mrs. Folks will remember, I'm concerned that we don't have this former report we had that was so easy to look at overtime. But I did take the added effort that was required in the absence of that report to look at the police and fire overtime for the period, for the first, it looks like 11 days of December, if I read that payroll information correctly. And it appears that both departments in those 11 days, if I read it correctly, consumed all of their budgeted overtime for the month already. So if that's a third of the month, they used the whole 100% of the monthly budget overtime. It looks like if you divide up the annualized overtime, it looks like fire has about $12,916 a month. They used $12,981 already this month. Fire has $97.50 a month, and they used apparently $13,409 already this month in 11 days. So, needless to say, I'm concerned because we have a budget that is apparently either inaccurate or not being upheld. And I'd like to know if we couldn't, last time we went through this, when I insisted on getting a report every month by the 10th of the month, and indeed I did locate, I didn't bring it with me tonight, but I did locate an email from Mrs. Folks where she committed that the city would deliver that report every month by the 10th, even though she declined to admit it last time. And I can send it to her. I think I already did send it to her, but I never get any response, so I don't know if she got it or not. So this is a problem. Again, you've heard us talk about the absence of information. This information will help us prevent having to make giant adjustments to the budget later on with money we don't have. Last year, as I mentioned last time, we had to increase the fire department overtime budget twice. We had to amend the budget twice because they were so far in excess of budget, and the police once. So I'm just trying to prevent, I'm trying to be proactive, trying to be positive, and if there's some explanation for these excesses or the bad budgeting, whichever the case may be, maybe it was just lousy budgeting. I don't know. We didn't have a hand in it, so how do we know? I'd just like to see us get that report every month, accurately reflective of what's going on, and not try to hide this stuff in some kind of obscure partial report that we have to go tracking down through the budget for everything, and it's a lot more work than should be required. So that's the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Any other comments by council? I would say that after 3 months, I think the CFO came and asked us to make the appropriate budget adjustments at that time. And I would assume that he will continue to look and determine at reasonable periods of time budget adjustments that are necessary. I don't think budget to actual is hard to find when we get the budget monthly statements in our first meeting of the month. So from my own point of view, that to me, coupled along with the payroll, which shows the number of individuals that are receiving overtime would allow us to make whatever appropriate adjustments need to be done. But I would think that the CFO would look and move to make adjustments at regular intervals, not necessarily monthly.
Well, I don't presume to suggest he do it monthly. My argument is, if it doesn't trouble you to see us over and overtime last month and again this month, which bodes badly for the remaining 9 months, then I guess I can't help you. Finding it in the format is really beside the point. It's the reality that we are exceeding the budgeted overtime routinely already this year, and we're going down the same path we went last year, and we're gonna have to scrape up some money somewhere to shore up the budget at the end of the year. Now, if we had a more thorough analysis by the CFO, and if he were here, that'd be great. Maybe he could talk to these things. Maybe we're way under on regular hours and we're just over on overtime. I don't know. I can't ferret all that out with the stuff I have, so.
Mayor, can I have a point of order here? With all due respect to and I do believe that the councilman's questions are valid, but this agenda item is a payroll report. The questions seem to revolve around a budget. If we're gonna take consent agendas items out to discuss them, a more appropriate question would be on some line item on here as to what a check is for. This would seem to me to be other business. I understand now why probably some of the other council voted no to remove this, and quite frankly, I'm fearful that of the boy who cried wolf type scenario here, to where we're gonna be doing that and somebody may have a legitimate question. But I think that we need to try to keep questions on agenda items on the agenda item, and I haven't heard one yet in this discussion that has to do with the payroll report.
Well taken. Discussion further along that line, Councilman Hayes.
Oh, I respectfully disagree. I think anything associated with the payroll that's of concern to the citizens and us as taxpayers should be brought up under that topic. I mean, what is overtime but an element of the payroll? The topic is payroll. I wanted to voice the concerns that I hear.
Okay, you have that, and you're going to get a third bite of the apple under other business in your comments if you wish. But let's move forward, all right?
Thank you.
I'll ask for the vote if there's no other comments by council. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's carried. I have the motion to approve commission appointments. There's actually going to be 2 items there, but the first is the appointment of the people. And I was thinking we could do it as a consent based upon the memorandum that you all received, unless you would rather go through it commission by commission. But I did talk to all chairmen for reappointments to see if they had any concerns about reappointing people who wanted to serve additional terms. I also talked to the department heads if they were active in particular commissions such as library or downtown development, the Parks and Rec, and as to all new people who would be coming on to a commission, I've called and talked to all of them. They all have submitted their applications, which are required now, and I've talked to all the people. I feel very confident that they'll be a great addition to the volunteers that serve our city so well. So I'd like to have it just done for those 6 commissions, if that's acceptable to the council.
I have no objection necessarily, Your Honor. I just wanted to check to determine, I know some of these commissions have charter provisions that allow for only so many terms or no repeat. I don't know what they are, frankly, but I presume you've researched that and these are all consistent with whatever the charter otherwise says, because I don't want somebody coming back 3 years from now saying he should have never been appointed because he served a term already. I'd hate to see somebody like Tom Gunderson, who's a great guy and is a great member of the committee, but if the charter says he could only serve 3 years or 6 years and he's already served that, then I don't want to have somebody come back later and complain that he shouldn't have been appointed again.
I don't think any of these commissions have that limitation. I think the only ones we have, those commissions don't seem to exist at the moment.
That's true.
Because that was a 5-year term, am I right, Mayor Pro Tem?
Correct.
So
I'd make a motion, and we approve your suggested appointments.
Support.
Hayes, and who had the support? Councilman Cisco?
No,
All right.
No, I'm
Templin.
not supporting.
Oh,
It was Councilman Templin.
Councilman Templin. Since I've asked for it as a consent, then I guess we go to a vote, clerk. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
No.
Let it show that the motion passed, but Mr. Cisco has voted against it. The second item, and I didn't get it on here, it was sent to me by Ms. Jans from the assessment, and I would just ask you to take a moment and go back to your claims and accounts, and if you go to the very back page and go right to the bottom, you'll see 2 payments to Don Lawrence and Timothy O'Neill for $22.75. If you serve on our assessment review board, you are paid the sum of $22.75 per hour for your service on that board. And you'll see those payments were made. They have special technical reviews now in July and December. And
That kind of unjust enrichment, I think, is shameful, Mayor.
But the charter does provide that a resolution of the council for people to be paid, and the recommendation is that we continue the $22.75 per hour. So that's the motion I'm asking for at this point in time, that we continue the same payment. Even though we have 2 boards of review, that should not add to the cost or time. It's just simply that it's hard to get 3 people to serve all the hours over those 2 weeks.
I'll make that motion.
Could you repeat the motion for the record?
The motion is to compensate the appointees to the Assessment Review Board at the rate of $22.75 per hour.
Okay.
Moved by Councilman Hayes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Cisco. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess.
Councilwoman Gavaricki?
Is this an added motion or part of the first one, or? I have no issues with it.
It's a second separate motion because it's
Okay.
the payment. And it would only affect the Assessment
Yeah.
Review Board. None of the other commissions are going to get $22.75.
I have no problems with that. I was just wondering where it fell on here. Thank you.
What was the amount? $22?
And 75 cents an hour. I don't know how we got that magical number, but that's what it is. Is there any other comments or questions?
I guess,
Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm even hesitant about, I guess I'm just thinking about all of our department heads taking a 10% pay cut and us keeping that, even though it's just a committee. I mean, I don't know how we justify it, but I'm not gonna scoff at it.
No.
I don't think it's certainly overcompensating by any means, but it just sometimes is a hard pill to swallow, the message we send when we've got
I
department
understand.
heads taking pay cut. And
The only thing I would say is, there were 3 people trying to get enough people to
I
fill that.
understand. Yeah.
And we had more people turn down the job than take it.
I'm sure.
So I think I got the last 2 people this morning. Or no, I must have had some commitment, but maybe they didn't have their applications in.
And just for point of reference, Mayor, and I know that I don't believe there's any conflict, but just so that we're not blindsided, I understand that the Katie appointment is our CFO's daughter, but that there's no conflict with the.
No,
appointment.
the nepotism section only deals where there's a direct control over that person, and there's no direct supervision by
And I'm
the
in
CFO.
agreement. I just want to make it public
Yeah.
that there is no conflict, so that it's not seen as something that we're trying to hide.
And the reason for her service is, she's a very interesting woman. She's a social worker. She does review on people applying in Department of Social Services for assistance from the state. So she does the review for these low-income families. We have probably, on average, 8 to 10 requests for relief due to financial problems of it. And it seemed that she might be one of these people that would be particularly attuned to looking at that, so. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That's carried. Thank you very much. We come to other business. Can I ask council if they? Councilwoman Kavrecki.
Oh, thank you. First off, thank you for coming this evening. Secondly, I will never be at an RTAB meeting at the hour that they're scheduled due to my work schedule. Should I feel that I need to address them, I will have to do so in an email. So don't look for me to be at an RTAB meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's not going to happen. But I will try and speak for you and address it to an email to them should I feel I need to. So I just want to say you won't see me there. So secondly, and one of the commission appointments, I'd like to say thank you for the appointment of Isabel Barbosa Rios to the festivities committee. She's been attending as a student commissioner for many, many meetings, and I look forward to her, and I appreciate that appointment. Next, just like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Hayes.
just a word. I would hope that as we continue to reveal here, with the new year approaching, and our next meeting will be after the new year, that we can see a New Year's resolution on the parts of some to really share vital information. Now, Mrs. Gawarecki mentioned that she won't be at an RTAB meeting, and I understand with her work schedule. I don't know that it does much good anyway. You have a whole 2 minutes to speak, and if you get that whole 2 minutes, you're lucky. And we've already been told that the RTAB will not respond to any emails because they don't want to, they're not going to address they believe that Mrs. Folks has all the power, which she evidently does. But it's a tragedy that in this city of people, well-meaning, good-hearted, caring individuals, have to sit here and watch the fiasco that this has become, that we can't get basic information. We get the letter a couple hours before the last meeting, and it was excluding several pages. Now, whether that's significant or not, I would have rather had all 6 or 8 pages. Why is it so painful to deliver us information that we are duty-bound to know about and to communicate to our constituents? And let me just say also, I've had no less than 3 emails in recent weeks from citizens who say that they have sent emails to the city and they get no responses. Sent multiple emails and get no responses. And I guess I thought we have policies that our department heads, our administrator, our people here are to be responsive. That's the first rule of customer service, and we are the customers of this city, all of us who pay taxes. And if we can't get our people that are in these positions as leaders, supposedly, to respond to a question from a citizen, that's a tragedy. That's a despicable situation. So I pray God that maybe with the new year turning, with the holiday season upon us, that some of us will have a reconsideration of our approach, consider answering emails, even particularly from elected officials. If you want to ignore the citizens, I guess do it at your own peril. But the elected officials are due responses, and it's shameful, in my view, that we don't get those. So I'd like to wish everybody a very happy Christmas, a very Merry Christmas. Our Jewish friends and brothers and sisters, as the mayor mentioned, celebrate, I think, the second night of Hanukkah tonight. Some of them are home cooking potato latkes. I wish I had some right now myself. I used to cook them pretty well myself. I ran a Jewish nursing home for 11 years. I had an Orthodox home with a kosher kitchen. I had a rabbi on staff, and I cooked latkes for my Zadies and Bubbies, grandpas and grandmas. So, and they liked them. I'm a good cook. Thank you. Have a good holiday.
Mayor, if I could.
Mayor Pro Tem Keenan.
Just a couple things, and I don't want to go out of the year on a totally negative note, but since it was brought up tonight, I haven't really spoke much about the RTAB, and like Tina, I work, and I can't be there at 2 o'clock either, but while I respect the members of that, and I think there's some fine members on the RTAB, you know, my issue is pretty simple, that the whole idea, I'm a common sense guy, all right? To have an RTAB, common sense would say that since the RTAB is there to review the decisions of this body, to basically add their rubber stamp at the end that we're not, you know, going to drive anybody off of a cliff or anything like that. The common sense side of me says that if they're going to review decisions that are made at this council meeting and by this mayor and council, that we would have the ability to make a decision. Otherwise, I don't know why we need an RTAB, because the only one making decisions is the administrator. So, you know, they could just have their own little gathering there and just go over the things, and you know, you could just eliminate us. I've said before, I've said publicly, and I make no bones about it. I met with Joyce Parker the day I think 2 days after she came in here. I told her, I don't like to be made to look like a fool. If you want to remove me, I have no problems with that. But if you're going to leave me here and put me up here to answer the questions of the citizens, then you need to include me. You can't have it both ways. I'm not going to be up here and be the whipping boy and not have any input or authority or anything like that. And I'll be honest with you, while she was here, I thought that she respected us fairly well. I think that several of us, if not all of us, had good input with her. We had a good rapport with her. I think we worked well together. And then on that 11th hour of the final day, we had a bunch of orders that basically took our legs off from underneath us. And the charter was amended drastically on that final day. And the administrator, who always reported to the mayor and council, is now the CEO of the city. Everybody reports to her, including this body. I mean, in the sense, technically she reports to us, but we have no authority over her. So she's the CEO. I think the mayor in this body, previously, according to the charter, was the CEO, and now the administrator is. The attorneys were always on a level playing field with the administrator, and I've said publicly before that I think that's paramount. I think in order to get a decision from the attorneys, and I'm going to tell you, we've got in my mind, and we've had several attorneys here, some of the best ones representing us right now that I've had to deal with, and I don't mean any disrespect to them at all. But in order to get a decision that I would contend would be free from any bias, they would have to have that freedom of knowing that whatever they say, nobody could do anything to them unless they had 4 votes to do it. Now, the charter's been amended to where the attorneys report to the administrator, one single person. So now, if you're smart and you want to keep your job, you better make sure your opinion goes along with what the administrator wants to hear, because if it doesn't, she can fire you in a minute, and nobody up here can say a word about it. So, again, with all due respect to everybody on the RTAB, and I think we have some great people on there, I wouldn't waste my time. There's other avenues to try to challenge some of these. I'm working on some stuff behind the scenes, privately, that I hope to be able to share in the somewhat near future. I'm not at that point yet, but some strange days we live in. Again, it would hurt me none right now if the administrator would have set all of us aside, and this can be a meeting with you guys and her anytime you want. Schedule the meeting, because right now I feel like a whipping boy up here. We're asked to make decisions, as was said earlier, with very limited, if any, information. And I see this, you know, our term ends in November. I see next January all these fingers going like this. This council did this, and this council hasn't had an ability to do anything after 7 or 8 months of its existence. I mean, so anyway, on that note, now that you got me all down, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, and I wish you a very a good New Year and a prosperous New Year. And I'm glad, and I want to just say that I do believe the city of Allen Park, I get asked all the time, I do believe we're moving forward. And I'm proud to be an Allen Parker, and I think that we'll never be what we were when a lot of us grew up here, but I think we're heading in the right direction, and I think that we're going to be a great place to live, work, and play again here in the near future. And I'm excited to see some of the changes that are going on. And it's not all bad news, but it's bad news if you sit up here. Thank you.
Mizzy?
I want to say something real quick. It's been a rough few years, I have to tell you, to watch you guys go through this process. Yes, your powers were taken away. Yes, you basically haven't been able to do anything. I mean, it was brought up that there's no information, and what's sad is people I met once, and these people met once, are running this city from another city. Okay, that's what happened, but it's not your fault. Okay, unfortunately, you're feeling the brunt of it, and I'm not gonna put blame, we all know who to blame, but it is sad. Now, I do have to say, it's none of your faults, okay? You didn't create these problems. None of you are, there's not much you can do. Again, when we have a financial advisor, great guy, a genius in money from what I've heard, but we don't even know him. And he's basically making our decisions. That's what happened. That's the nature of the beast when you get in a financial situation like we do. And week after week, I hear frustrations, and I say this every now and then, but it drives me nuts. Because on both sides, it's frustration. But it's really maddening when you're in here every day. Because as much power as people say that other people have, they really don't. And that goes for a lot of officials in this city. And it's just a sad, sad process. I mean, unfortunately, part of me says it was needed. We were run down to almost nothing. We were almost bankrupt. We were one of the top 25 cities in Michigan in budgetary standards. So with this holiday season, don't be down at all of what's going on. No, please, you did not cause any of this. But you were the people who were punished for it. And I give you more credit than anyone. And with that, I'll stop, but I would like to wish all of you Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. God bless you for coming out. Good night.
Yes, Treasurer.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask this question, but on the report that Mrs. Folks gave us, number 8, where it says the budget meetings have been held, I don't know if they are wrapped up, because I haven't had a budget meeting as a department head and an elected official, and I understand that, you know, there isn't a lot of change in my budget, but I don't know if this is already going to the state or if all of the budget meetings have been held. And so I was just wondering if in fact I am going to have a budget meeting. And with that, Merry Christmas. Have a good evening.
I don't think it's my time at the plate. I want to thank the judges of the district court for their work program for the people that they put on probation and have them do work for the city. If you've been on Wick Road, where we've got 4 schools and 2 large churches, they went down there this past week and they did the final raking in the boulevard. They went on all 4 gutters and cleaned that, and the street looked great. I thought it was nice with the holidays coming up for us. And lastly, I want to wish everyone up at our table, in our audience, and those who are watching us, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And with that, I will take an adjournment.
Motion. Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, supported by Councilman Hayes. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 8:10.
Jed.